It Comes in Waves is a game about guilt and grief. This is how developer Antonio Freya explains his project. But what awaits you as you explore the haunted desert of a dying alien world is something far more complicated. A minimalist, one-shot survival game that pits you against a contextless landscape and a mission that requires an explanation that simply is not there. One of the greatly undersung aspects of games as a medium is that the player is far more accepting of things in abstract than they otherwise might be. By directly controlling what's happening on the screen, there's a sense of groundedness to the player's point of reference, even if everything around them defies the laws of reality. It's why we question not the jovial Italian plumber as he happily catapults himself across structures and lands that seldom make sense. Why we make peace with the summoning of great supernatural beasts at the player's behest to help face down an insurmountable foe. Why we accept in totality the irrational spaces that so many games place their players within. Immersion allows greater space for a more organic diegesis. There's always been a huge draw towards lore and analysis in this space. It's not unique to games, but what differs here is that because the player is usually in control of the pacing and frame of a gameplay experience, they get to decide what they think is worthy of further scrutiny. In this space, implication is king, and because of that it feels so peculiar that so many games are willing to offer a complete and specific explanation for everything that goes on within them, even if sometimes you really have to dig to get to it. It Comes in Waves doesn't care for the player's peace of mind. Its story is so brief you may even miss it. Opening in this cripplingly isolated desert town, the player is greeted with hostility, called a traitor, told you know what you did, instructed to leave and never come back. Returning to your vehicle, an ominous prompt reminds you of what you have had to give up in order to move forward, and you are unceremoniously dumped further into a realm of sand and fire and blood. It Comes in Waves is a game about grief and guilt. It all started when you left. The narrator chimes at the beginning of this cycle, refusing to elucidate further. Who is this you? What do they mean by left? What even is this place? And what did you do to deserve such undivine punishment? It's easy to think in the modern era of narrative-centric storytelling that these are questions that need definitive answers. But something surprising about my time with this game is that by the closing credits, I didn't feel like I'd been left with half the story, even though almost none of my initial questions had come anywhere near close to being answered. To me, at least, it felt like I had been party to a creator generously giving up authorial intent to let his players be the ones to tell the tale. Exploring this bizarre alien space, your goal is to deliver a specimen to the sanctuary, but it has to be fully grown before you will be allowed to pass. Growth is determined by collecting specific canisters dotted around the wasteland, some obscured by landmarks, others protected by the faceless drought raiders who make up your main adversaries in this adventure. The mission is complicated further by an ever-ticking clock. You're in the desert, you need water, a precious resource that once depleted starts to sap away at your health. This is a game with no save points, so when you die it's back to the start again, although curiously, the game never takes you back to the opening town. I guess you can never come back was a literal proclamation. Exploration is a perilous endeavour, and your constant need for H2O as you search for these growth canisters starts to inform the decisions you make throughout. You don't have a lot of verbs to work with here. This is a minimalist survival game. You can walk, run, jump, and draw and fire your weapon. That's about it. But by restricting your language set in this space, the game inadvertently gives more power to the small pool of actions you can take, and this isn't obvious at first. The further you travel, the more you realise that a lot of the danger you face is caused by your own panic rather than the world actively trying to take you out. Not everyone you come across on your journey is trying to kill you, but I had a somewhat brutal discovery early on that, bystander or foe, they all have resources on their person that you can collect. Sometimes your own situation can make cruelty bubble to the surface. Killing an unarmed man in a thirst-induced rage, a panicked barrage of bullets expiring some poor stranger for a precious supply of Adam's ale that won't even last the length it took to take that life. Now that there is storytelling. Discovering with great shame the substantial water tank mere meters away from your prey after the fact? A fable worthy of all mankind. Even something as simple as choosing a weapon becomes a diegetic choice based on what parameters best suit your wicked intent. That's storytelling too. Do you anticipate a trail of bodies in your wake? Or are you only looking for a last resort in an unkind world? Did you even consider that doing nothing might be a viable option? That by using logic and assumption that you could manage your journey between landmarks more effectively to avoid the chronic pull of violence entirely? It's not easy. But then again, when has doing the right thing ever been simple? This world is broken, decayed, aflame. But it is only you who can provide context through the remnants of your own life, not quite a sandbox. Not quite an authored experience. This ludic space is brought to life by you. Its story is told only by your presence within it. That's the power of games. Why it seems so foolish that we think of great stories only in terms of prose or cinema, as these fixed points in time and space that ask us to live someone else's life instead of our own. We should be the storytellers in this realm. It should be on us to weave our own fables using the commonality of lived experience and the infinite possibilities of digital space to allow works of art like this a more tangible chance to mean, well, whatever you want it to mean. I can't even tell you what the intent behind this game's title is. It comes in waves. That's for you to decide, based on the framework of your own body of experience going in. Nothing is ever truly tabula rasa. A loss, an act of desperation, a sorrowful animalistic response to the howling heat of a world that was never meant for us. It Comes in Waves didn't need lore or a narrative or even a main character to project the harrowed wails of existence onto. It didn't need to tell its own story, and that conviction to put the onus on the player to understand what is meant to be conveyed is a bold maneuver I wish more games would take.